most people don't come into a science class because they want to pursue STEM or science. They have to take it. But they all have different interests. And so I can capture some of them that have the artistic, abilities, and really that's what they enjoy if I can find a way to bring that in. Some would be creative writing, some are music. Typically I'll do something like I have a mangrove cafe at the end, which is any creative expression they want to do, but we set it up like a coffee house with backdrops and everything, and they can play music in groups, they can do poetry, slams, they can pretty much anything so long as it relates to the assignment.
Promoting creativity is, I'll be honest, it's something that I have to think about consciously doing, because I have a tendency, and this is one of my shortcomings, I have a tendency to develop tunnel vision. I get so focused on trying to craft the information that I'm required to present to my students and have them think about, and in such a way as to get their attention and to make it understandable, and maybe inject a little bit of humor into it to make it palatable, that I sometimes forget that it's more than learning information, because you can just read the book or watch a video. You can get information that way too. It's not just about acquiring information. So what I have made an effort to do is incorporate a little bit more active learning into my science course or courses by having students do assignments or work on activities, either individually or as a group, that requires them to apply the broad concepts related to the topics that I'm presenting to them to real life scenarios, particularly scenarios or situations in their own lives. And that definitely sparks, you can just see a total shift in the students' behavior and their attitudes, because now it's not so passive. They're not just trying to drink the water as it's shooting from the fire hydrant. Now they're working on really clever ways in which they can mirror that information and show me that they understand the concepts.
I think back to how Brandy approaches the communication aspect of the science part of our course, and it's not technical at all. It's about 5 senses. And she just drives home that every time. She just goes through each sense, and then we go out and do our observations. And she just says, how does it sound? How does it feel? What does it look like? How does it hear? So we go to the swamp and listen, close our eyes and just listen to what the sound is. And the communication that comes out of that is really a lot more connected to the broader audience than any graph will ever do.
In reflecting on why it's so important for students to be able to communicate what they know about science, I think of all the topics that are considered controversial amongst the public, but in the science community, they're not really controversial. Things like climate change, vaccines, evolution. And so why are they controversial in the public eye? And a lot of that, I think, has to do with scientists and being stuck in our jargon and our very specific worlds. And if we focused more on being able to communicate the most important findings of our studies to the general public, we might reduce some of that controversy. So I do focus on a lot of activities with my students where I have them think about that specifically. What is it that the science is telling us, and how do we translate that into a language that makes sense to everybody?
The communication that's most necessary to the broader audience today is not data heavy, and it's not technical at all. The most important communication about science is actually emotion about particular subjects. That's what gets people interested about climate change. That's what gets people interested about water quality.
It's quite a challenge to excite students to enjoy what we enjoy as professors. For example, for myself, I do enjoy to find alternative ways of doing the same thing. So we have to try and strive to make them feel excited about alternative ways of arriving at the same thing.
There's very little knowledge that isn't useful. I used to go to English classes when I was 14 and 15, and I thought, Macbeth how is this going to be useful to me? But it helps me when I'm in the classroom to be like an actor on the stage, projecting to the back of the room and making gestures. And I'm trying to fill this little proscenium right now. Everything I found is useful.